Hi, I'm Casey Lueders, and this is Could Be Pretty Cool. What does it look like to build a support organization that actually centers the people it's meant to serve? And what happens when the people running it decide to stop asking that question from inside someone else's structure and start building the answer themselves? Today's guests are Calida Jones and Douglas Clayton, co-founders of Creative Evolutions, a human-centered consulting practice working with arts organizations, nonprofits, and the individuals navigating them. They've spent years watching well-intentioned systems fail the people they were designed to help. And rather than keep patching the gaps, they left corporate consulting to build something different. We talk about what it actually means to be human-centered, and spoiler, it's a daily choice, not a mission statement, why they've stopped using terms like best practices and strategic planning, and how a conversation over lunch led to momentum. We'll get into that right now. So on today's episode of Could Be Pretty Cool, I'm going to take the liberty of using this time to have a really unique conversation with two veterans in the field who have not only gone through experiencing things, working for other people, working for other orgs, but they've taken experiences and flipped that in ways that are still evolving in real time. And they're going to tell you all about it. We're going to talk all about it. But before we get started, first of all, welcome Douglas and Calida to the show. If I could have both of you introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do and how you got there. So we can start with Calida.
Awesome. First, Casey, thank you so much for having us on your show. It's great to be here. And so the short story is I am a violinist. I've been playing since I was 5 years old. And I also have a background in education and cultural strategy work and advocacy work, especially for our communities of people of the global majority, because we are regularly under-resourced to do our work, but still manage to do it with high quality. And it's exhausting to be so under-resourced to do really great work. So I became a connector, a network builder, a problem solver, and I get to do that while also playing my violin and nurturing other communities across the globe. And that turned into activating other pieces of my purpose that I didn't realize I had. I thought that I would teach violin forever. I really thought I was going to die teaching a 4-year-old a scale. And then I realized, oh my gosh, there's so many other things that I can do that have impact that will be felt post me. And I wanted to activate those things. And so I started branching out. I moved in fear. I was definitely living in fear. And I was like, I'm just going to push forward and navigate through fear. And that turned into sitting on a number of different national boards, working in the state of Connecticut, activating really cool work with the State Arts Advocacy Group in Connecticut. I was the board president for 2 terms for the Connecticut Arts Alliance. And then I did work with the El Sistema USA organization and served on their board as well. And I say the things that people think, but they're scared to say. I'm not scared to say the things, Casey, because if we don't say the things, nothing's going to happen. And I'm also a Sagittarius, and I think that's part of it too. That's what my therapist says. Because regularly in my session, she'll say, now, Calida, why did you say that? I'm like, you asked me a question. I answered it. But my answer wasn't filtered. It was just asked and answered. So I get to spend a lot of my energy really raising other people's visibility and profile. I've been very blessed. I've been very fortunate to be in incredible spaces across the globe to speak life into people, to speak kindness into people, to nurture other humans and communities. And I really just hope that boomerang will eventually come back this way because Casey, sis is tired, okay? Sis is tired. I need a nap, like an extended nap. You know how people do those sabbaticals at these institutions? I need one of those. Okay. But then, I met Doug through jumping into not stepping completely away from education, but putting it on the side a little bit more. It wasn't as prominent. And I dug more deeply into working with nonprofits across the nation and helping them to strategize differently and recognize that we can actually center the humans in a more healthier way. And so I took a leap of faith. Doug was like, you should apply for this job. It's great. So I did. He hired me. And for 5 minutes, he was my boss. No, he really was my boss. He hired me. I don't know why I think I'm always in charge, but I do. And I loved working with him. I was like, oh, this guy's really cool. And he has the ability to know how to step up and move back when we're in space together, which as a Black woman, that is a really big challenge in spaces that are predominantly held by cis white individuals. And so I was like, he's really great. And we're doing really great work together. But then for me, it was my purpose and how it was showing up in the world was not able to be realized in a way that was authentic to who I am as an individual, who I am as Calida Nicole Jones, and how my parents raised me. And so I was like, I gotta go. So I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I gotta go. And so I called Doug because he had already made the decision to step away and do some different things. I called him. I said, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, I don't know. I said, okay, well, I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. And then we started Creative Evolutions. And when I think back today in this conversation to that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, we were crazy. We really totally blew our lives up, left corporate jobs to start something that we work exceptionally hard to ensure the impact will be felt way past our time here. And that is not easy work. That is not an easy road. It requires a substantial amount of humility, and it's lonely. It is not for the weak. It is for people who will get up every day and try again. So that's what we're doing now. That's a little piece of my story.
So something that I really held on to there is activating another piece of my purpose. That is such a wonderful way to look at the ways in which our professional lives can sometimes just manifest in ways that we may or may not be in control of. And I love how you laid the foundation for the origin story between yourself and Douglas. Douglas, could you fill us in on the gaps? How did this happen? How did you end up in this place where you are now? And tell us a little bit more about where this spark for Creative Evolutions and this partnership began.
Sure, for sure. Thank you, Calida, for that, the laying the groundwork there. So my whole career in whatever aspect I've been in has always been about being so amazed with the incredibly talented and passionate and capable people that I meet, and then being frustrated that the systems or the structures or the jobs or whatever are not allowing them to fully realize everything that they can do. And so artistically, I started life mainly as a theater director. So I was directing a lot of stage, all sorts of different things. These days, my artistic life is in dance. So I do ballroom dance and a lot of social dance. And in between and on top of and throughout, I have also always been business-minded systems builder person. I have 2 business degrees and also an arts person. I went to school for graduate school for theater as well and have an undergraduate theater degree. So I have always been doing those things together. And I very quickly found myself at a service organization for performing arts when I was in my 20s. So I spent 10 years working with hundreds of performing arts organizations, theater, music, dance, and opera. From the people who said, I want to start a theater company, to $50 million a year theater mega organizations. And which the entire time still has been like, there's so many different people doing so many different kinds of things with so many different ideas. And these systems that we have built to support them aren't supporting them to do that. And in fact, they seem to be getting farther and farther away from that. So I did that for 10 years. Then I got my MBA and then went into producing again. I've been producing theater throughout. Then I ran 2 opera companies, one in Los Angeles and one in Chicago. Then went from there, which is a whole story in itself, went from there into consulting and at a consulting firm, which is where the origin story there was, where I was introduced to Calida and recognized in Calida someone who had all these amazing gifts and in the places she had been, often very cycled. And so I said, come work with me. I will dedicate myself to uplifting the things that you can do to help people. And so she came to work with me. And then as she alluded to, both of us working in more corporate consulting setting, as the world has been changing faster and faster, we just became really aware that the approach of here is the way to do it, and this is a very sort of corporate consulting thing, is to say, here's the process, and we do this with everyone and just trust the process and it's the same every time. And also the vast literature on best practices, which is where a lot of educational institutions operate, and also even service organizations that come from this place of let's find the best practice and teach everyone the best practice. But there is inherent in that, you can call it this sort of assumption that everyone basically is in the same circumstance, or you can take a more negative spin on it and say this is actually an oppressive approach to say this is how Lincoln Center does it, so everyone else should just do it the same way, and that will be good. And what we started discovering, Calida and I, was when we did that, and whether this was about a strategic planning process, or this was about a CRM tool, or this was about an HR handbook policy, that so often there would be, here's the process, here's the best practice, and then it wouldn't work. And then the reaction from the people in the team or the organization or the arts organization or whatever it was would be that they had failed because this was the best practice. This is the way that it should be done. And if it doesn't work, it's because I am not good enough. And that was just unhealthy and damaging and awful. So we started being much more adaptable, and we started really embracing the idea of these organizations are here to empower humans to do more than they could by themselves. And that's what it's about. And that the small arts organization in Idaho is not the same as the brand new but large, well-funded organization in Texas. And that's not the same as Lincoln Center in New York. And that's not the same as something in Canada or in Mexico or other places around the globe. These are really different. And it's good for us to understand and to know what other places do. And that's something we can do, is bring context for those kinds of things without imposing that this is the right way or the wrong way. And so those two things, like we're here actually for the people, and also we need lots of solutions and lots of choices for people. I think that's in various ways what encouraged both of us to leave where we were and then to start Creative Evolutions, which not only is about human-centeredness and actionable solutions, but is evolving. And that's the thing we can get into, is we've been doing Creative Evolutions for 3.5 years. It doesn't look like it did a year and a half ago. It doesn't look like it did 3 years ago. Like, we are evolving as it goes and really embracing the thing a lot of our colleagues have said working with us or being in our ecosystem together, which is what we're really about is that we have more choices than we think we do. And that is the fundamental thing, which we really realize drives us every day, is if something's not working or something could be better, we go, there's more choices. We just haven't thought of them. Let's just think about more choices we have, because there's so many. There's so many. And just that knowledge is so freeing.
This is almost like a narrative arc that we hear so many times on Could Be Pretty Cool. I was in a position and then I just started noticing this isn't working. But the way that I could make the impact isn't necessarily trying to beat my head on the table fighting the system. It's moving on into creating something from my perspective, from my point of view, something that we can shape and mold into the thing that we want to help people the most. But it was also acknowledged that's not a thing that just happens overnight. That's not a thing that, great, we had the idea and now we did it. We nailed it. This is an evolutionary process. So I would love, Calida, if you could tell us a little bit more about Creative Evolutions, exactly some of the things that you do, some of the, the mission and the vision, and maybe some of the things that you've learned in this past 3.5 years.
Yeah. Wow. Gosh. So much. I wouldn't even know where to start in terms of what we've learned. What I will say is the big thing that I think Doug and I have really aligned on is that we do, in fact, have more choices than we think we do. And I notice that every day when people make the same choices, I'm like, but you could have done this a different way, or you didn't have to move that direction. But what I'm learning is that we're human. And so we're always going to move in a way that feels most comfortable for us. But what happens when you divorce your comfort and really look at examining how it would look to put others first, and also dismantle systems that are already oppressing people and have been active for thousands of years, frankly. And our human-centered approach, Casey, it is, and I don't think Doug would have an issue with me saying this, it takes a tremendous amount of work to be human-centered, okay? There's no other way to say it. It is a choice. to be this human-centered. It is a choice to respond to every single person who submits a application or their portfolio to be considered for a job. And we've had anywhere from 50 to 120 people apply for roles at searches that we've done, and we respond to every single person. And every day now, I'm sure you have been following a lot of the employment challenges that are happening in our country, right? And then I'm reading about how people are ghosted, no one responds, they never hear back, and they find out that the position gets filled with the announcement of the person. Like, how can you get any more inhumane, honestly? And that human-centered approach to our work, to me, really solidifies trust. And I think we don't do a great job of building trust in nonprofits and arts and culture. I think because we're so stuck in that scarcity road. Doug and I were having lunch today, and I shared with them, I said, I've been learning from other people and talking to others about how nonprofit is just a tax status. It's not a business model. And then I look at all of these nonprofits that are struggling and hoping that they're going to make it to the next fiscal year, versus let's bring in someone that has a little bit more experience in the math part. And I'm always looking at these different lenses because they affect the majority of the work we do when we're doing strategic planning with organizations. And while I say strategic planning, we are also really intentional about our language. So we prefer to say strategic pathways. That's just because you say strategic plan, everyone goes back to the days where you have the big binder with the plan from 2023 to 2026, and it sits on the shelf. No one actually does the plan. But we did the strategic planning for 6 months, but the plan never takes action. And so what does it look like to have strategic pathways that are also broken down with the financial implications of said pathways? And then do the thing. I don't understand why people don't do the thing and then fail at it. It's okay to fail. We can normalize that too. I think and I'm guilty of this as well, probably because Sagittarius, I'm a perfectionist. I don't like making mistakes, and I make them every day. And I've learned to embrace the failures because it's information. It doesn't determine who I am as a person. It's just more information for me to understand how I'm seeing the world and how people are responding to things that Doug and I are sharing with them. If I could say our values, we stay curious. Curiosity is a big value of ours, and being intentional about how we show up for people, how we show up for organizations. Doug and I are, we're always talking about the idea of mission and mission creeping. And is it really a mission? There are all these buzzwords that continue to fly around our field that, don't you think?
Since you said mission 3 times, in this case, you introduced mission. This is a great example.
Yeah.
We're questioning language all the time, and also trying to get off of language into action and behavior. And mission, that idea by itself, which is this defaults, which we all have, if you just think about that for just a minute, what is the associations of that word? And that word tends to be associated either with things like colonialism and the missions, right? Like we were going to missionaries, or like military missions. And in either case, there's this sense of we're going to do this or die trying. And that is crazy. And it is also not about where are we going to be most effective. It's not about what do people need the most. It's not about what are we the best at. It is this let's put ourselves in a place where we will push through reasonable choices and push through like responding to the people around us to do this thing because we are so committed. And that's not to say passion is bad, commitment is bad, like being able to like make some sacrifices for something. Those are all admirable qualities, but we have seen so many people get hung up on this is my passion, which literally means the thing I'm willing to suffer for, right? Or this is the mission, which I translate often to I'm willing to die trying for this. And that puts us in a place where sometimes not being effective, and definitely in places, especially in the nonprofit space, where people are willing to suffer abuse because they feel like that's why they're there, is to suffer abuse. And this is not necessary. We do not have to. So that's just one little example of what if we rethink that and about what we're actually trying to do here, and if there's a different way that can be healthier and also more effective both.
I think that's a very important call out. Throughout the past 6-ish years, the world in general, but if we're speaking specifically about nonprofit world, even more specifically about arts nonprofit world, we have been on a journey between the pandemic and social uprising and places we're now in a place where, federal funding and in some cases local funding is looking a lot different than it was 7, 8, 9 years ago. And yet, to your point, so many of us are still stuck within these frameworks. So this is the way we have to operate in order to continue doing what it is that we're doing. And so I like that you all think about even the terminology, the language we use. I remember when I was in arts nonprofit, we used to talk about grant speak. We could probably just use like a regular sentence. We teach dance classes, but it's like we connect the community through the movement of collective. It's like, why do we do that? Why do we feel we have to, I don't know, subscribe to this particular type of existence as an arts nonprofit organization? So you all as a support organization diving into the whys. And I think that's just really important, especially in this particular moment in our socio-political climate where I think innovation is necessary in order to survive. Do either of you have any thoughts about that?
I think when you were saying that, Casey, I think about the ways that Doug and I work to interrogate a lot of the assumptions and the ideas that we've currently been functioning under, and the idea of actually innovating, like beta testing something, building something, testing it, seeing how it works, and if it works, awesome, use it. I don't need to own other people's stuff. Now, I do need some money, but I don't need to own your stuff. However the money comes is how it comes. Creating prototypes of things and also challenging what's been happening. We always hear the best practices. And I don't like to, and Doug and I, again, interrogate language. I don't like to say best practices because that leaves no accountability for what if it's actually not the best. That leaves it kind of out in the world. And I don't think that works either for the work we do. And then also, what if ownership looked different? And what if we were the co-designers of a system and not forced into living in a system that is literally killing us, honestly? And when I think about the hundreds and hundreds of people that I know who have been, like, their health has literally been close to death because of their jobs. And we just keep going through life. And I don't believe in a world like that. I don't think that is the world that the universe wanted us to function in. And so I'm always actively working to interrogate that and frankly, to dismantle it because it's unhealthy. And we weren't built to live this way. That is something I wake up feeling every day, especially lately for different reasons. And because I'm trying to teach myself and others to have more grace with myself, because we are literally functioning in a way that we weren't built to function. Those robots that they got coming out now, they can do that. We can't do that. We will not survive. And I think there's this moment here that we're in now with the current political climate and with the way that money is structured, the way that intellectual property is structured, the lack of information so many creative people have about how to both own your stuff and still create. There is a way to do that through innovation. We're not robots. We're people with real feelings, and we bleed if we cut. If I cut myself, I'm going to bleed. And so when you think about the emotional weight of everything that we're carrying, it doesn't really allow for you to be freely creative. There's always a twist. It's, yes, I'm creative. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do the thing. But I'm also holding this quiet autoimmune disease that I have to live through. I'm holding this thing that I have to function through. And then I'm taking care of my elderly parents, or I just had a kid, and then people are very laxadays. They're like, oh, you're going to be fine. No, I'm not. Actually, it turns out I'm not. The test came back. I'm not going to be fine. So we need to figure this out because this is not serving the greater good of humanity.
Thinking of, as you said, all of the ways that we as humans are having to function in our professional lives and our personal lives, how that all creeps in together, and we still have to be excellent and do our jobs and go to work and create and innovate. This almost feels like a weird segue, but as far as beta testing, as far as trying new things as entrepreneurs, you all are doing one of the things that, as an entrepreneur, small business owner, it is so overwhelming. I've done a few small events, like one-off things, one night, and events break my brain, the logistics, the organization, all the things. But you all are not just taking a small step. You all are creating a new in-person virtual platform. Y'all are doing a lot. I would love for you to tell us more about momentum in this journey as Creative Evolutions. Where did the spark come from to say, we should create a conference? Douglas.
Of new approaches to things, from Calida describing several different ways to approach strategy, definitely in hiring, definitely in like people in organizations, definitely in what nonprofits can be. Our own ownership model for Creative Evolutions is its own thing, which is very distinctive, which is a whole fun story about when we talked to our lawyers about that. And they were like, you can do this. Do you want to do this? And we said, we actually do. So we have done a lot of that, but we are also hugely ecosystem oriented and about uplifting other people. And so we have been for 3.5 years saying, how can we collectively develop more solutions for things that people really want more choices for? And also use expertise that we don't have. Calida and I are just two people. There's so many points of view, and there's so many ideas that are way beyond what we can do ourselves. But a lot of the models out there for getting people together to develop new things are challenging. And most of the industry conferences that we have all gone to, especially in nonprofits or arts and culture, those conferences are not built for new solutions. They are, in fact, largely oriented towards the best practice kind of thing. And even cool new ideas that get shared, naturally, they wouldn't work for 3/4 of the people in the room. And those are the people who speak up first. And for the 2 people in the back who are like, that could work for me, it gets lost, and it's not the platform for that. And then there's think tanks. And there's those kinds of we're going to get 5 people together and we're going to work for a year. But that also feels insular, and that also can feel very like, it's just, how are you curating these people and whatever. So for a while, we've been saying, how do we get people together in a way that is accessible and that also can develop new things and that also is somewhere in an overlap between these. And the breakthrough for us came with talking to some of our university partners last year. And our university partners were saying, hey, we really want to get more engaged with what's happening outside of the university. We want our faculty and students to be engaged with the future of what's happening, but we don't have money and our system isn't working well either. And we said, what do you have? And they said, we have a platform and we have space. We have buildings. And so then we had a colleague, actually at UC San Diego, Lisa Portes over there, who was having lunch with us. And she said, when you were doing strategy with us, you told us that we cannot solve everything in a day. It is just not the way our human brains work. What we have to do is talk and process and then let it sink in our minds for a day or a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, and then come back and keep doing that. And that's how we build wisdom. And that's how we get breakthroughs, is realizing the thing that we didn't think of a week ago and then having a way to bring it back. And that's the thing with regular conferences that is often frustrating, or even gatherings for new ideas. People get together and they talk about a bunch of stuff, and then it's over and there's no follow through. And also then you have a great idea 6 weeks later and there's nowhere, you just put it on social media or something. And, so she said, instead of trying to do one big gathering somewhere, why don't you do a series of them? And then our other university partner said, oh my gosh, that's great, because hosting 1,000 people would be really hard, but hosting 100 people would be really easy. And we're like, oh wait. And then to your point, Casey, like hosting 100 people for 2 days, like I've done a lot of events and conferences, like I would rather do that 10 times than 1,000 people once, because it is so much easier with space and with food. Everything is just easier. And so that's where momentum came from. And it's this wonderful new structure where we are doing this summer in 2026, 4 2-day convenings at 4 different universities. So Seattle, University of Oklahoma, University of the Bahamas, and Minneapolis College of Art and Design. Each of these is 2 weeks apart. And each of these is meant to host around 100 people, maybe 175 tops. And the idea is to pick a topic for this summer, and then to the first gathering at the University of Oklahoma at the end of June. 100 people come together and spend 2 days. We take the best practice, we put that outside, we close the door, we say we're not complaining about that, and we are not defending it. We're saying we know what that is, but now we're going to see how many other options we can come up with and detail them from all our points of view. And we don't have to finish. We just have to add. And then we package it up, and we're going to put on the screen the pictures of the 100 people who are going to be at the University of the Bahamas 2 weeks later. And we're going to say, everything you've done here, people, we are now sending forward to to these people. They're going to look at it in 2 weeks. They're going to add to it, and then they're going to package it up and send it to Seattle and then to Minneapolis. And the idea is to build this communal set of ideas with detailing over time and all publicly available for use, but just getting more choices on the table from a lot of people's points of view, and then hopefully activating them, which is a whole nother piece. But meant to be accessible, meant to have it so everybody can really feel that, like, I can add my parts and then watch it continue forward in the ecosystem together. And that's what Momentum is about. And in addition to the topic for this year, which we can talk about, which is about forwards of directors, we are now getting actually quite a lot of interest from people who are not even in the nonprofit space, not even interested in things like boards or arts, but who are saying this structure for a series of events, we could scale that up, we could scale that down, that could happen in a county, that could happen across the world. Like, this actually is a different way of building thought together that actually a number of other people are interested in. So that's the thing. And then Calida was the one who names it Momentum, which we love because it is both describing the structure and describing the purpose, which is wonderful.
I was just going to say, I think about all the conferences and things that we've been going to for decades, and they're great. I love going. I love seeing my colleagues from across the nation and catching up with them and seeing everyone. But after a while, like, that feeling that sits in your chest where we all know that the field is struggling right now. It's been in trouble for a long time, but now it's an even deeper kind of trouble. And we go to the conferences and everything, which is great. And we come home with the same PowerPoints and the same language and the same structures. And somehow that seems to be seen as innovative, and we don't really have time to think together. We rarely have space and time to think together as artists, as culture workers, government leaders. Because I just want to say this out loud for anyone listening. Momentum is not just for arts and culture. Momentum is indeed an innovation around people and structures changing or being dismantled and destroyed. Okay. Because we've had enough. It is enough already, but we never have time to actually sit and think together. And so this is where we keep asking our colleagues, our people that we say we love and care about, to survive in systems that clearly need to either be redesigned radically or just completely blown up. And Doug and I often will be in situations where we're like, are we just going to pretend like this is okay? Because this is not okay. And I say that with so much love and so much deep respect for so many in the field that are doing amazing things. But I'm exhausted, and I'm watching us go on this hamster wheel that is burning out. Like, it's churning, and then it starts to break down. Our field is extraordinary. And then we're also surviving on 500 liters of coffee and an unrestricted grant. I don't want to do that anymore. I want us to be able to thrive and not just survive, like actually thrive. And that's really, for Calida, that's where Momentum came from. It was like, we can't keep trying to survive because that's not working. That's not a flex. It's not cool to say, yeah, I worked 36 hours today. There's only 24. So what's going on? What's happening? I'm not trying to be shady. Like, that's real. And so honestly, Momentum is the table. We built the table. Creative Revolutions built the table. And none of us should be sitting there alone, including Doug and Calida. We can learn from every single person who signs up, who registers. But the thing is, you got to do that. Because if you're complaining about a thing and then a solution has been offered, but you don't invest in the solution, then it's clearly not a problem. And then stop talking to me, please. Respectfully. But there's joy in, like, the idea of, we built a table and people can bring their chairs and we can add leaves to the table. The table can expand. This is not one of those situations where, oh, you can't come, because we want people to come, and we want people to push and pull. There has to be a little bit of discourse in order for something new to rebirth and be reimagined. There's real joy in that. We're all burnt out. We all have questions. We're all feeling uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. Money is funny. Funding is shifting. There's a sliver of optimism that can still help us get over the next hump of the work that we do.
The one thing I just add to that is, one of the things we hear from people all the time who are in these very difficult spots, and every day we get calls from people just in tears about their situations. But so often they're like, I don't know what else I would do. What else can I do? What other choices do I have? What other ways can we do this? And so momentum, but also our work more broadly, is aimed at answering that question. So when someone says, what other options do we have for a board of directors? This obviously is miserable, but what other options do we have? We can go, here's the book that the community created with 30 different things. Here's how you actionalize those. Here's how you could do them. And that is joyful and freeing and also has accountability built into it, because now you can't say, I didn't have any other choices. You actually had quite a lot of other choices. So then it becomes about, okay, what are you willing to do or not? But we get past the first resistance, which is good. That's the way we can be helpful to all of us, to each other.
Communal ideation with a tangible takeaway that could serve as a learning for the field at large. That is as an innovation for, even if we're niching it down for the conference field, like it sounds like y'all are on to something. And if people are listening, like, oh, I want to get into that. How do I find out about that? Where should they go to learn more about the inaugural Momentum Conference?
Yes, they should go to momentumrevolutions.com, or they can go to creativeevolutions.com. And there's a whole beautiful write-up and I'm a very visual person. So whenever I go to our website and see that Doug has been doing things, or Cindy, I'm like, ooh, it looks pretty. I like this. And it makes me click on things. I am not a website designer, so I know my lane and I try my best to stay right on in it. I don't merge.
But if people go, even today, this is in the middle of May right now, so Momentum 2026 won't start until the end of June with the first event in Oklahoma. People can register for those now, but even ahead of that, people have been sharing ideas and pushing things around. So this summer's focus point is, what are other ways we can do boards of directors that are not this structure that we all have been taught? What other choices? There's already 15 different ideas that are listed on there that are like starting what people will add to and detail out. And some of them are ones you've probably heard of before, or probably, oh, I know someone does that. And some of them, people who have been like championing board change for years, see this list of 15 and their jaws drop and they go, oh, we're talking about some big different ideas. Yes, we are. And so that's already there, and there will be more added. More is being added every week. And definitely once the Momentum events start in June, then there will be media content. There's also speakers at these events too, which is a whole nother thing. We have a speaker series where there's a speaker at each event, and they are all speaking to the same theme, but they are not just speaking their own thoughts. They are also responding to the speakers who've gone in the previous convenings, because they have 2 weeks between each one to think about that. So there will be a whole beautiful video series with that as well. So there's a lot of really cool things that'll be all publicly available on websites.
As someone who personally serves on 2 boards, I definitely am looking forward to hearing what folks around the country, around the world are up to, how you all are going to distill and share all this information. And yeah, we're curious. We're also curious to see, what are y'all's curiosity? What is it about to provide to the field? And that's really exciting. And you should both be I know you're probably exhausted, but also you should both be very proud to be reframing so many things that the field has just been stagnant on for a little bit. So kudos to you for that. And actually, if you wanted to share your personal handles or anything like that.
Well, our Creative Evolutions handle is for Instagram is Creative Evolutions Ecosystem. And our Facebook is just Creative Evolutions.
Also, Creative Evolutions is easy to find on LinkedIn as well. And there's some things too for the LinkedIn-minded among us.
Yes.
Nice. Well, thank you both so much for coming to chat with us. I'm sure that folks listening are going to be like, hi, let me go check this out. And I hope that they will. So yes, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Casey.
Thanks, Casey.
A few things from today's conversation that stuck with me. 1, we have more choices than we think. This is essentially the operating principle behind everything Calida and Douglas do. When something isn't working, the first move isn't to push harder or find the right best practice. It's to ask what options haven't been put on the table yet. 2, human-centered is a verb. They respond to every single applicant in a field where ghosting has become standard, and that's not a small thing. It's also not accidental. This is a daily decision to do the slower, harder thing because it builds trust. And finally, language shapes behavior. From strategic planning to strategic pathways, from mission to something more honest about what you're actually trying to do. Calida and Douglas are deliberate about their words. Because if the language keeps people stuck, the work will get stuck too. And if momentum is any indication, they're not theorizing about better systems, they're actually building them. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Farewell, and may all of your creative endeavors flourish. Could Be Pretty Cool News is a Could Be Pretty Cool original production. Created, hosted, and executive produced by Casey Lueders. Senior producer is Liz Moore, and supervising sound editor is Trinity Jackson. Our original theme music was composed by Camille Stennis and cover art designed by AJ Johnson. To learn more about Could Be Pretty Cool and discover whatever else we're up to, visit us at couldbeprettycool.substack.com. Thank you for listening.